Eban, how did you find carnivore?
I was actually watching a Joe Rogan podcast, and he had Jordan Peterson on. And during the course of the interview, but they were talking about various things. Then Joe Rogan said to him, you're on this crazy diet, this carnivore diet." And Jordan Peterson went into detail. He said, let me start off by saying, when I speak here, I'm not speaking as a clinician. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a qualified medical person. He goes, I'm just somebody who eats a certain way, and I'll tell you my experiences. And he said he only eats beef, salt, and water, and he never cheats. And the benefits from his newfound diet was that he lost 7 pounds the first month, 7 pounds the second month, and every month from that point on, he lost 7 pounds. And he got to, I guess his body weight is like 160 something pounds, which was great because I really did want to lose weight. But what really caught my attention is he had depression, which I don't really suffer from depression, but he had depression which went away, which you very rarely hear anybody with depression going away from changing their diet. He had multiple illnesses that he no longer suffered from. And then he spoke about his daughter. His daughter had a severe form of arthritis. And multiple joints had been affected. She had multiple surgeries, a lot of them before the time she was a teenager. And just hearing the story and hear how he stuck with it and all the different things that he changed, I didn't jump on carnivore immediately, but it stuck in the back of my mind as a possibility for something I could try. But it it sounded a little crazy because everything I'd been taught at that point was, the best way to eat to be healthy is low fat, and carnivore was definitely not low fat. It was vegetable based or wheat based, which carnivore is definitely not based in either one of those. It basically went against everything I had been growing. The food pyramid. I grew up to the food pyramid, and it went against all of that. So it kind of stuck in my head more because it sounded so crazy, and although I wanted to believe him, I didn't believe that all those things were possible. The health benefits, the amount of weight loss that he gained, the fact that he never had to change his diet, he maintained a healthy weight. And every diet I ever went through, I kind of struggled with that. So to hear that he didn't have to, at a certain point, if you're eating just low carb, at a certain point you have to add things so you don't lose too much weight. Or you have to subtract this. Because usually low carb comes low fat, and you just keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until you're an unhealthy weight. But fast forward a few years, and like I said, I thought thinking about it more and more, and then it started to gain more popularity online. So I see more people doing it. But I called my brother, and we were video chatting. And while we're talking, I'm looking at him. Now, my brother was always in the gym. He always stayed healthy. He's 60 years old now. At the time, he was 58. But he got slender, but he just looked fantastic. When he moved his arms, you could see it. You could see the biceps. You could things that I never noticed in him before. And his skin, his whole look was just totally different. So I was like, dude, what are you doing? You look fantastic. You back in the gym? What's going on? He's like, no, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. I started this carnivore diet. And immediately I was like a puppy. My ears went up, because now it's somebody I can actually, I can tear him down if I feel like he's lying to me. But he's like, yeah, I did it for like a month. I feel great. My energy's good. He didn't do it for my brother's, very much, I don't want to say vain, but I guess he's kind of vain. He's very into how his appearance looks and his weight. And it's good for him. That works for him. His thing was, yeah, the muscle tone you see, I'm really not working out. It's just coming from the way I'm eating. I'm taking a lot of protein, and he kind of breaks it down to me. And at this point, I was very sick. I didn't want to admit it to anybody. I didn't want to come to grips with how sick I was. But I was I, although I didn't look brittle because at this point, I was probably 255, 260 pounds. And I'm roughly 5'8", 5'9", depending on what shoes I'm wearing. um, I didn't want to admit to myself that I'm really as sick as I was, but he's talking to me and he's telling me how much it's worked for him, and I'm flashing back to what Jordan Peterson had said, and then all the influence I had seen afterwards, and it it clicked in my head that day that I definitely needed to do this and I needed to do it soon. Now, although I'd been rambling around in my head for a couple of years at that point, now that I'd made the decision I was going to try this, I'm the type of person I have to physically decide that I'm absolutely going to do it before I won't even really talk about it with too many people. It just kind of sits in my head. So for like 2 or 3 weeks, I talked to my brother a few more times about it. He was still doing it. Um, I mentioned it to my girlfriend, who I'm still with, and I talked to my son about it. And I'm always looking for a partner in something I do. This way, I always find dieting's easier if you have somebody to talk to about it. But much like me, everybody thought it was crazy, and they didn't have the time to kind of stew over it. So they're like, "Well, you do it, and we'll see how it goes." That type of thing. So I'm in a supermarket with my girlfriend, and we're looking at. It's funny how clear this is in my head. We're looking at. She's looking at Pepperidge Farms cookies. Are you familiar with them? They all individually. Well, they have 1,000 different varieties. They all have chocolate in them. They're delicious. There's no question about it. But I'm a diabetic. My blood sugar's at this point probably over 300. I had stopped checking it. I wasn't taking my medication. Um, I just wasn't. I wasn't taking care of myself in any way. I'll go into my eating habits later. My eating habits were horrendous. But my girlfriend, thankfully, is a healthy weight. She has a good relationship with food. She'll eat once, maybe twice a day. She eats small amounts. She can eat whatever she wants, and she stays healthy from what I can tell. And she's 5'3" and 120 pounds, 125 pounds, depending on where she wants to be. So she can do that. You know what I mean? Where if I open a bag of Pepperidge Farms cookies, I'm not only going to polish off that bag of cookies, I'm going to go into my cabinet, get a bag of popcorn, and I'm going to be looking for a ring ding or a yodel or whatever, chocolate covered treat I can find on top of whatever meal I'm going to eat. So I couldn't look at those cookies anymore. Looking at them that day, for whatever reason, just reminded me how sick I am and how horrible I eat and how much I need to make a change. And I was like, F this. I said, baby, I can't look at these cookies anymore. I'm going to go look at the steaks. And she knew what I was kind of kicking around. So I walked off and I found in the, I'm giving you kind of a long answer. Is that okay? All right. So I found it over by the steak department. Now I'm a father. I have a lot of responsibilities. I have people I got to take care of. So I do well for myself, but I'm always conscious of how much I spend on myself because at the end of the week you want to make sure you have, if your son needs a new pair of sneakers or some emergency comes up, your car breaks down, and my girlfriend has cats. One of her cats gets sick. I want to make sure I have that money. So spending money on just me is a hard thing for me to do. So I walked over and everybody does ribeyes on this diet. I walked over. I didn't really do any research before I went out to buy the food. I just said, okay, it's red meat. So I bought these like super lean, like almost razor thin steaks. I couldn't even tell you what they were, what cut they were, but it like flavorless, no fat, no marbleization. There were six of them in the pack, and it was like $10 or some ridiculously low price. I was like, well, they say eat once a day and eat steak. This is six steaks. That's 6 days I could eat for a week, and it's only $10. So it's like hitting all my cheap buttons. You know what I mean? It's it's really fitting in with my life. So I buy the steaks. I did have the presence of mind. I bought a roast beef as well. Um, I figured I could if I had cravings, which I knew I was going to have. Um, if I had the roast beef sitting around, I could cut little slices off and throw a piece in my mouth to kind of fight off cravings. So that was my plan, week one. I would love to tell you it was easy. I would love to say that, oh, it was great. I started carnivore and it just felt great and everything was awesome. It felt impossible. Um, I ate the steak the first day, and like I'm a steak guy. I've always loved steaks. That's why I thought this would work for me. But the steak was just, it wasn't enough food. I had started off completely wrong. And like for those of you that are paying attention, do a little research before you go food shopping. Find out what the best way to go is, because if I had results. It was great, but it was a little torturous because I just didn't have the right foods in me. So anyway, I got through it. I ate the steaks. I kept the roast beef because I had cravings constantly. To give you kind of a background of why my cravings were so bad, I work nights. I would go into work. My lunch consisted of two homemade cheeseburgers, lettuce, tomato, bun, the whole 9 yards. Not McDonald's Mama burgers. Serious hamburger. Two of those. Then I would have the full like family size bag of popcorn. Then I would bring two of the extra thick Hershey bars. They're like this big and like that thick. I would have two of those. I would have ring dings, and I would have which are like chocolate covered cream filled cakes. There's two in the pack, and then I would have like a bag of Skittles, which are like little candy covered chewy candies, right? So that would be my lunch. I would get to work. I usually get to work about an hour early. I would eat all of that within the hour, and then punch in, and it was time to do my job. And then we get back and finish the job, whatever. I'll come back for lunch, and I would go to the store because I work in the Bronx. There's a million stores. The food in the Bronx is incredible, and I would buy a foot long hero with the thing everybody eats in New York is called the chopped cheese. I'll get a chopped cheese hero. It's chopped up hamburger meat with lettuce, tomato, ketchup, all the fixings all mashed in together on a foot long bread, and I would eat that. And also, I would have what I would bring with my lunch is a 3 liter bottle of soda, which by this point in the night was already finished, and I would buy a 20-ounce soda at the deli. So, and that was just what I ate at work. Now, keep in mind, I would go home, and the eating would continue. Um, to that degree, I was just a constant vessel for eating. And what spooked me the most about my former diet was that I was eating like this, and I had started to lose weight. Before I started losing the weight in the unhealthy way, I was 275 pounds. By the time I started carnivore, I was 255, 260 pounds, depending on the day or the time of day I stepped on the scale. So I lost a significant amount of weight because the diabetes had started to, there's, in my mind, this isn't speaking from a medical standpoint. This is just how I see it. I had a friend of mine who passed away from complications of diabetes. And one of the last big steps in his downfall was the weight started to fall. And I don't know if it's your body trying to get rid of the poisons that you're putting in or what it is, but the weight started coming off me at a rampant pace, and there's really no explanation for it because I was eating. I got to say I was eating. If you believe in the whole calorie thing, 10,000 calories a day, maybe more. And if I wasn't eating, I was sleeping my life away. I'd get home from work at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would sleep. If I would sleep, wake up to eat, go back to sleep, wake up to eat, go back to sleep until it was time to leave for work at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. So my life was not only based around food, but it was kind of a nightmare, and my health was going down the tubes in a fast pace. Some of the health issues I dealt with as far as being diabetic. Um, Fast forward to years before carnivore. Rewind to years before carnivore. I go to work. I get up to go. What is it? So on Monday night, I get in the shower. Now, for those of you who don't do well with detailed health issues, you might want to cover your ears for a minute. But I'm going to go into great detail. It's a little bit embarrassing for me, but I want everybody to hear what really went down. Get up on a Monday morning, Monday night before I got to go to work, and I jump in the shower. And as I'm washing, I find a mass on my scrotum. Now, my initial thought, and a wave of fear went over me that I had cancer. That's what anytime you find a mass, I'm sure anybody would think cancer. So my stomach got nauseous. I was in a different relationship at the time, and I called for help to see if I was feeling what I thought I was feeling. And when she had looked at it, she's like, "No, it's not a tumor. You have a boil." It was this big, to kind of give it, in reference to my head. That's how big the boil was. So I had just started my job, and my job has a year-long probation. And this isn't a type of job you throw into the wind if something else comes up. I took a test to get this job. It took me 5 years to get hired. And the probationary period, the first thing they tell you is don't take much time off. If you can avoid it, don't take any time off. So I was like relieved it's not cancer. I was like, all right, it's a boil. I'll deal with it on Saturday. I work Monday through Saturday morning. By Wednesday, I knew I was sick. It was a struggle to get up. It was a struggle to get to work. It was pain. The area was painful. I didn't feel good. But the whole time thinking, I've known a million people who had boils. I'll be fine. I get to work Friday, and we get sent to a job site. There was a miscommunication between me and the foreman, so we couldn't find each other for a few minutes. By the time I linked up with him, the job was pretty much done. So that was it. The night had finished at that point. I go back to my reporting location and swipe out, and I leave. I remember punching out. I remember walking to my car. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember walking into my house, and I don't remember laying on the couch. The first memory I have beyond leaving work was around 7 o'clock at night. My girlfriend at the time, waking me up and telling me she'd been trying to wake me up for hours. That if I didn't get up right now, she was calling an ambulance. So, needless to say, I scrambled. I stumbled, not scrambled. I with everything I had, I got up. I got in the car. We went to the hospital. The end result was I had obviously the boil. I was septic, which is blood poisoned. I had now when you have diabetes, when your blood sugar is over 300, your body stops healing itself. All your healing mechanisms shut down. So any opportunistic infection that was available to me took over. So I had pink eye, I had sepsis, I had tachycardia. My heart rate was over 180 beats a minute. My blood pressure was through the roof. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I remember, it didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but I was borderline delirious. And I had 4 years gangrene. Yeah, on my scrotum. So when the doctor came in and did his inspection, he alerted me to this, and he was like, "Look, one, you're not going anywhere, and two, in 2 hours you're going to be on my operating table." He said, "There is no choice here. You're either going to be on my table, or this isn't going to be the end to this isn't going to be good for you." So at that point, I was like, "Doc, I don't even care. Whatever it takes, just fix this." So I went into the operating room, whatever. They did their surgery. I woke up in recovery, and then they moved me to the critical care unit. Critical care unit, I was the only person on the floor that was conscious. That doesn't sound, at the time to me, it was like, oh, well, cool. I'm healthier than everybody on the floor. But what I didn't realize is the reason why they had me there is they didn't expect me to be conscious. They expected me to be on a breathing machine. They expected me to fail. They didn't, I guess maybe because all the painkillers they had me on, it didn't register at the time. I was just kind of like floating through it and having a good time. And the nurses were great to me. And I was just, it was like a vacation for me is the way I was looking at it. But the doctors kept coming in and saying, Mr. Marshall, I don't know how you're not on a ventilator. So the reality that didn't kick in till months later. But I went through that. The post-surgery process was 7 days in CCU. For those of you who've never had a boil, when a boil's large enough that they have to lance it, they don't stitch it. They leave a hole where whatever material they cleaned out, they leave a hole, and the hole has to close on its own from the inside out. So I couldn't see it because one, I was so overweight, but the placement of it. But I had what they kept referring to as a large hole in my scrotum. So they had to pack it with gauze. Now, I don't know how big the hole was, but when they did pull the gauze out, which was the most extremely painful thing I'd ever been in my life, the pile of gauze that they pulled out was like this. The pain from them removing the gauze was so bad, I thought my teeth was going to shatter. And the nurse told me at that point that everything that was inside me was outside. That's why the pain was so bad. So she never went into detail on what that meant, but that's what I went through. And now, when I think about this, the problem I have with it is I understand how horrifying that is. I understand how much pain I went through. I understand how my life was in danger. The part I can't wrap my head around is that my addiction to food was so strong that I didn't change my habits immediately. I didn't know about carnivore back then. It didn't have to be carnivore, but I didn't change anything. I didn't start exercising. I went home and went right back to my routine. Now, I was a little while without any boils. I want to say it was a year or so without any boils. And then I got a second one. And again, this time I knew what it was, and I recognized it early. It was the same size. It popped up the same size. I went to my urologist, who I've been seeing on a regular basis at this point, and he told me, you got to go right to the hospital. He tried to do something about it in the office, but the pain was excruciating. He was like, look, if it's hurting this bad, you're going to end up in the same spot you're in. This is a gentleman who operated on me the first time. He said, you got to get over there, and otherwise you're going to end up in the same position. So I went and yet another surgery. And again, I came home, no changes. And now the difference now is I was getting boils on a weekly basis. But I figured out how to manage them. A saltwater bath would bring the fluids from the boil to the top, and then it would pop. It was painful. It was disgusting. But, with me, if I find a way around something, I work my way around it. I don't have to go for surgery. I figured this out. It's simple. It's just something I have to deal with. And I dealt with that for years. I dealt with it through the end of that relationship that I was in. And with the girl I'm with now, for the whole, up until I did carnivore a year and a half ago, I'm with her 3 years. So a year and a half of that relationship. Now, imagine trying to explain to a new girlfriend, oh, by the way, every once in a while, which is every week, I get these growths that I have to tend to. And then, I can't go near you till it heals. So, and again, I didn't make any changes. I just, going to family members' houses and having my boils burst at their house and have to run in their bathroom and handle it and try to keep it a secret. It was horrendous. but it didn't affect me enough to make me make a change. But so a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, because now I just did the math. I think it's 466 days now that I'm carnivore. So April 17th, I started of 24. So I'm going to say February or March of 24, I started to notice things I didn't like. I went to a doctor's appointment. My blood pressure was creeping up. It wasn't dangerous. It wasn't like heart attack, but I never had bad blood pressure unless I was very sick. And now all of a sudden my blood pressure is creeping up. I'm recognizing and I'm losing weight, and I know my eating habits are horrible. And when I'm at work, my job is a physical labor job. So if I got to pick something up, if I got, everything is pick up, put down, lift, bend over. I'm constantly, most of my job is dealt with a shovel. So if I'm not bending over a shovel, I'm bending over to pick something up. So I got to climb up and down ladders 100 times a night, a million flights of stairs. And what I'm starting to recognize is I have a smartwatch, and I'm starting to pay attention to my heart rate, and my heart rate's not getting below 100 ever. If I'm sitting and totally relaxed, my heart rate's at 100. If I walk 20 feet, my heart rate's at 118, 120 beats a minute, and it'll sit there for a little while. If I'm working, it was 125, 130. So that's spooky. And when I'm bending over to pick stuff up or shovel or whatever, I'm having a little bit of lightheadedness from time to time. Now, here's the problem with that. I'm 49 years old now. When I was 23 years old, my father came home from work. His power steering hose had bursted in his car, and the whole cabin of his car got filled with smoke. And my father was hard-headed. It's kind of a family trait. So he drove the car home filled with smoke, and he got home. He went in the bathroom. Now, my father never went to the doctor. If he said he had to go to the doctor, you'd almost call an ambulance. So he comes home. He's coughing. Me and my sister are arguing about something stupid, and we try to bring it to his attention, and he makes it obvious to us that he's struggling. So we back off. He goes in the bathroom. A couple minutes later, he tells us to call an ambulance. So we hit the panic button. We call the ambulance. He gets the ambulance. They take him away. Neither one of us got in the ambulance with him, so he wouldn't let us. So he goes off, and I go that night to visit him, and they got him tubes out of everything. It turns out in the ambulance he had a heart attack. He survived that heart attack, thank God. But he was unhealthy. He wasn't the same after that. Struggled walking up and down stairs. He never returned to work after that. In hindsight, if this was an age where we had Google, I would have known a lot more and recognized what was going on, because he didn't even tell us he had a heart attack. He just told us that there was damage to his heart, and that the heart had. I can't even believe I bought this back then. He told me the heart had rerouted the blood so he wouldn't. It's not an issue. It's just he's got to get used to the way his heart's working now. What we didn't know is the doctor at that point told him he had a year to live. My father made 0 changes. Sorry. He never stopped smoking. He didn't change his diet. My father was a beer drinker, and he would have a mixed drink every night. That never changed. And I'm kind of a grandstand person. If I'm angry about something and I try to talk to you enough times about it, I make a grandstand, and I grandstanded him. What about the cigarettes, about the smoking, about the drinking? You're struggling. Not that I thought it was going to kill him, but I was like, you're having all these struggles. Put this stuff down. Take care of you a little bit. And his response was always, I can't use the words. I mean, I try not to use the words he used, but leave me alone. I enjoy my cigarettes. If I can't have my cigarettes, then what's the point? Like that type of thing. Like every smoker, every drinker. It's not that they're addicted to whatever it is. It's that that's just what they like to do. You know what I mean? So he didn't make any changes. I tell my son this story all the time. He was hard headed and pig headed about it. But again, what I didn't know is 3 days before he died, the doctors told him, "You have 3 days left. Get your affairs in order." That's when he quit smoking. I mean, like, dude, smoke crack at that point. The game's over. Enjoy your life, dude. Smoke cigars, smoke more. It's too late. So I'm 24 years old. I go to work one morning. I hear him coughing, and I check on him, and he says, "I don't know if you'll have to edit this out, but I'm going to swear because it's what he said." I said, "Dad, you all right? You want me to stay home?" He said, "I'm fine, you little dick. Go to work." That's just how we talk to each other. You know what I mean? I was like, "All right, sure." He said, "Yeah, I'm fine." I said, "All right, I love you." He said he loved me, and I went to work. Uh, I got the call at 12 o'clock. Apparently, uh, he finished reading his book. He said he picked up my niece. He said, I'm picking you up for the last time." My wife at the time was with him. This is how I know. He sneezed. And it was over. Ugh. Do me a favor, grab me a glass of water, please. So, um, so now I'm 24. Uh, and he he was my resource for everything. Any, even the dumb stuff that you do as a kid that nobody tells their parents about, I would talk to him. Thank you. Pardon me for 1 second. you know, knucklehead. I grew up in the city in Queens, in New York. So it's like a sardine can. You got into fights. It was different back then. You fought it out with somebody, and then you were friends after that. But the knucklehead stuff you do in the neighborhood. Whatever it was, I would go home and tell my father about it. Uh, but now my she was my girlfriend at the time, and she became my wife. She had a young son when I met her, and I adopted him. So now I'm raising a child, and my mother was my mother was different. My mother she didn't live with me anymore. That my parents had separated, and she didn't have the tools that you need to raise a child. She never did. She was vicious. She was a very heavy drinker. Even after she got her life straightened out and walked away from alcohol, she just uh, I built a friendship with her, but that the time to build a mother son bond was long past. We were buddies more than we were anything else. My father was who I spoke to. I couldn't. Dad. Like my son Dom has a rash. What do I do? I didn't have that. Or me and Nicole want to go out to dinner. Can I send the kids over to your house for a couple hours? Yeah, I missed out on that. And I was talking to my son about it today. My father would have been 81 years old. If my math is correct, he was born in 38. His brother's still alive. I don't have a relationship with him for various reasons. He's not a bad guy. I just don't have a relationship with him. But he's on my Facebook, and I see him enjoying his grandchildren, doing things. And my son never met my father. It's just like him. He's just like him. Thank God he doesn't have any of his bad habits. But man, his personality is my father to a T. But he'll never meet him. He'll never hear the stories I got to hear. He'll never, not from him anyway. I tell him all the stories. But I tell you that to say I'm having all these troubles at work. My heartbeat's going fast. All these things are going wrong, and I'm thinking I'm gonna leave my son like my father left me. Only my son at the time is barely 18, and it was unacceptable. Um, I am not gonna be that guy. If there is a soft cloud above us that we sit on and watch over our loved ones, I'm not going to be there till I'm 100 years old. I'm not letting it happen. I'm going to meet my grandchildren. I'm going to coach my son through this life. I'm going to get him where he needs to be. And when I'm ready to move on, he'll be ready for me to move on because he'll be sick of me. I'll be so damn old. you know? But I want to be there when him and his wife are having trouble and he needs somebody to discuss it with. I want to be um, for job interviews. My son went on his first real job interview. Well, he's going actually tomorrow for the interview, but the job's already a lock because of the way I taught him to go through the process. You fill out the application, you go in and you make your presence felt. You talk to somebody, you let them know you filled out the application. You check in on it now, and it's his first job. Is it life changing as far as his uh, family and everything? No, but it's going to be a great experience for him, and it's the field he wants to be in. So I got to do that with a year and a half ago, or almost 2 years ago. If I didn't start carnivore, I really, and I say this as truly as I could mean something, I feel like I was probably months away from a heart attack. I couldn't run a flight of stairs. I could barely. If I walked I walk stairs all night at work. Like I said, 14 to 15 stairs. And I'd have to take a break and breathe for a minute before I got the last few steps. And if I ran up the stairs like an emergency, I'd be, and taking breaths where my chest hurt when I took the deep breath. It was a bad situation, and I was getting to a point where I was having a hard time regulating back to a normal heart rate. And it never got down to a normal heart rate. 100 was the best I saw. So that was it for me. I made the change. I bought those horrible steaks. Um, and it's been incredible. The laundry list of issues that I had before I started carnivore. Um, I had obviously diabetes. My blood sugar was anywhere from 300 to the highest I ever had measured was 475. I don't know if that number is different throughout the world, but in the United States, you want your blood sugar to be somewhere between 90 and 100 is optimal. Not, yeah, 70 to 100 is optimal. So I was triple that. Um, I had headaches constantly. I would come home from work and my girlfriend used to massage my scalp for hours. I had knots in my calves that you could feel. They felt like marbles in my calves. In each calf, when I come home from work, there would be 15 or 20 in each calf. And when you touch them, and pain's not something that it takes a little bit of pain to make me respond. And she'd rub these knots, and I would be jumping out of my skin, and each one took 4 or 5 minutes to massage out. Head to toe pain, shin splints constantly, tendonitis in both elbows from the work that I do, arthritis in both my feet, muscle soreness. I mean, my back. I have multiple herniated discs in my back. I have pinched nerves, sciatica, all these things. I've had my back went south with the job I have now, but all these issues have been around for forever. So I start this diet, and I'll be honest with you. I started to lose the weight and beat my diabetes. And all these people that talked about, oh, it cures this, it cures that, it cures this. I'm like, whatever. You're clickbait. You're looking for somebody to listen to your video. You know what I mean? And the doctors, like, they're telling all these healing properties. I'm like, yeah, well, how are you telling me what's going to heal me if your business is making money off? You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to tell me. I'm very skeptical. You're not going to tell me this is going to heal me if it doesn't make me buy medication. This guy's not selling anything, and this is going to heal me. How does he make money? You know what I mean? So my plan was, I'm going to do this diet, and when it fails, I'm going to make a YouTube video, and that's how I'm going to make my money. So lo and behold, I started the diet. The first week was horrible. First week and a half, 2 weeks of a lot of cravings, a lot of fighting. At that point, it was willpower. I got about 30 days in. My plan was 30 days. Was it 30 or 90? 90 days, excuse me. It's my son in the background. My plan was 90 days. And then, because that's right, it was 90, because I said, well, everybody says 90 days, so I'll do the 90 days and I'll be strict. I'm hard-headed. I can do that. Like Jordan Peterson said, I can hang from my fingernails for 90 days. So I'm going to do the 90 days. It's going to fail. And I'm going to rip this to shreds all over the internet. And much to my horror, 90 days later, pretty much at the 90-day mark, I had stopped all medications. And now I'm not just talking about pain medication. I stopped taking my metformin, my Ozempic, all the things. I had 3 or 4 different medications I was on for controlling my blood sugar. My blood sugar at that point wasn't perfect, but it was like 120, 125. And what I didn't want to happen is for my blood sugar to bottom out. So I talked to my doctor. She's like, no, you're 100% fine. Your blood sugar, it's not so much that's perfect. It's stable. It's not bouncing all over the place. It's just slowly decreasing. So and my doctor's not carnivore. She didn't believe in what I was doing. She tried to get me to eat other things. I'll go into that later. But took me off all my medications. Now, I told you I had a head to toe body pain. Twice a day, I was taking 1,800 milligrams. 18? Yeah, 1,800 milligrams of ibuprofen, just so I could function. I didn't have to take that anymore. I still had some aches and pains, but it was what I would say is what you would contribute to a regular 48-year-old's aches and pains. A knee was a little sore, this was a little sore, nothing that would ever stop me from doing anything. What I did still have is back pain. And my back from the herniated disc, this motion side to side, I couldn't do. If I did that, I would have a pain that would rip around my rib cage. It was like a nerve pain. It would go from my spine all the way around to my chest. And it would stop. It was like an electric shock. It would stop me dead in my tracks. My son played football through junior high school and high school. He loves to throw the football around. I couldn't do it. We go out, I throw it 4 or 5 times. And then luckily, because I'm a parent, I get to say, all right, let's go do something else. But it was really, if I throw this ball again, I'm going to cry. um, Me and him, we don't box like contact, but we shadow box with each other though. I couldn't do it anymore because my defense is side to side, and I'd move one way and he'd make believe he hit me, and I'd wince and he'd think it's because he hit me, and it was because that I had that ring of pain around my chest. So that kind of just a lot of things that me and him did. We used to play frisbee, just goofing around. I could do it, but it was like I knew it was going to be fun, but at the same time, I had that fear in me because I knew it was going to hurt. Um, so that's kind of a long way to tell you. I didn't expect that pain to ever go away. It was spinal. The way I used to tell people, I was like, look, all my pain is gone, but my spine is a mechanical pain. It's from the way that the discs are sitting. So that's forever. That has nothing to do with inflammation. It's nerves being pinched by this, nerves being pinched by that. So I had accepted that I'm just going to have back pain my whole life, and I have to maneuver accordingly. So as time went on, the regular 48-year-old pains even went away. So now we get about 6 months into carnivore, and I'm strict because I like now I'm seeing. Oh, by the way, day 1 I lost 4 pounds. By day 30, not only did I look like a completely different human being, but I was down like 30 or 35 pounds, maybe a few pounds more. It's been a little while now, so my memory's a little foggy, but it was around that type of weight. But more importantly, the look. I've lost in diets in the past, and we can go into that if you like. I lost 80 pounds of weight before, but it took months and months and months before you saw the real difference. With carnivore, because of the reduction in inflammation, my whole, like, I was unrecognizable. My face shrunk, like my shoulders shrunk. Everything just got smaller, and I felt lighter because the pain was gone. So fast forward 6 months into the diet, I wake up one morning, and actually I was working nights, so it was the middle of the afternoon, and I'm walking around the house doing things, and I make a move that would normally put me in crippling pain, and it didn't hurt. And then I make another move, and then I start like, hey, wait a second, this doesn't hurt. And then there was a point I believe I was putting air in my car tire, and I bent over to air up the tire. And normally from that position, I would have to like walk my hands up the fender of the car to straighten my body out because I just didn't have the strength anymore to raise up on my own. And I finished putting air in the tire, and it just popped up. I was like, wait, that didn't hurt. And I'm like, I look like a fool. I'm like celebrating next to my tire because I had been in this pain for almost a decade. And I realized at that point that I don't have pain anymore. I pardon my voice from the emotional response before. My voice is a little scratchy now. I I have arthritis on my feet. I've seen it on X-rays. I'm not aware. It may still be there. I don't know, but I can't tell. I used to try to run on a treadmill. I could run when I was getting in shape years ago, back when I was like 37 years old. I could run a mile, and then the pain was too much. I'd have to stop and go do something else for a little while, and then I could come back to the treadmill and run a mile. I I'm walking now. Well, we'll get into that, but I walk for my job. I walk sometimes 3-4 miles a night. My feet never hurt. Sometimes I have to just stand in one place for hours at a time. My feet would be killing me. It's not an issue anymore. My back, there isn't a move I can do that hurts my back anymore. As a matter of fact, I don't remember the last time I hurt my back since that 6-month mark. I haven't even had a pulled muscle, which used to happen on a very regular basis. My diabetes is completely under control. The headaches are gone. I haven't had a headache since probably the first couple of weeks of carnivore, because I was taking in so much soda. My caffeine addiction was crazy. So I had a massive headache for first month. But as soon as that month was over, my headache was gone. And the downside to it is my girlfriend doesn't rub my head anymore. But the upside is I'm not in any more pain. There's no more knots in my calves. I've had 15, 18-hour days of work, and I still no sign of those knots in my calves. From my diabetes, I used to wake up in the middle of the night with like they call it a frog in your muscle, where your muscle locks up and you can't straighten your foot. That used to happen to me on a nightly basis. That doesn't happen anymore. My tendonitis, that's from repetitive motion. I work on cars all the time in front of my house, or doing projects around the house where it's repetitive motion. Since about the 3-month mark, I've had no sign of tendonitis. Now, from what I understand, is this diet knocks down the inflammation. The inflammation was bringing the pain. And, the argument could be made, well, you still have tendonitis, so you still have herniated disc, you still have arthritis. Yes, maybe I do. But if it doesn't hurt, does it matter? Like, I can run and play with my son. As a matter of fact, I ran wind sprints this morning. I'm 49 years old. I'm going to be 50 in September. I haven't exercised in 15 years. And I was running wind sprints this morning. You know what I mean? And after we were done the wind sprints, I came home, I changed my clothes, and we went to a car show. I wasn't wiped out, So I'll get into the whole exercise thing. I'm excited about that. But that's the I know it's a 6-month period, but that's the immediate results I got from carnivore. What I will say to people, I hope, look, I want everybody to do carnivore. I look at it like I won the lottery. If I knew I could win the lottery every day, I would share the numbers with everybody I love. Hey, look, I won the lottery, and I figured out that if I do this, I'll win the lottery again tomorrow. So you play these numbers too. I would tell everybody and their grandmother, hey, anybody who I care about, anybody who I thought was struggling, hey, play these cards and win the lottery. So my point in saying that is the downside to carnivore that I could see is you talk to everybody about carnivore. I'm talking to the cashiers. I'm talking to the grocery clerks. I'm talking to the people in the street. I see a guy that winces in pain. I'm like, hey, have you tried carnivore? You know what I mean? I'm like, if there was a job selling carnivore, I'd be the best salesman. And it's coming to a point. I don't like to say the word coach because I'm not trained. You know what I mean? I'm not classically trained. Which, look, there's dietitians out there pushing false profit. They're like false prophets. They're pushing bad information. So in a way, I think I'm as much of a coach as they are. And it's not their fault. They're working off of bad information. But I'm at a point now where, like, there's a couple of Facebook groups where somebody will ask a question, and there's several people on there that'll tag me in it and put like Ebon Marshall and then a question mark. And I have 12 or 15 people just on a friendly basis. I'm not making any money off anybody. Would I love for this to turn into something? Yeah, absolutely. But, I'm excited that they get to see the changes that I get. So, I'm coaching quite a few people. My closest friend who, I've said to people in the past, when I started carnivore, he thought it was insane. I had this conversation with him recently. He has a significant amount of weight to lose. And he has some health issues because of that. But he berated me about this diet. It was a joke, like, between friends, teasing me about it. We go to a gathering, and he'd call me over and make what I'm eating a point of conversation, so everybody could kind of giggle about it and like look at how weird this guy eats, that type of thing. But I stuck to my guns. And when I started to get thinner, my joke back at him is, who should you take eating advice from, me or him? You know what I mean? So, and all in love. The guy's like a brother to me. But fast forward a year and a half, guess who's doing carnivore? He told me the other day, from the beginning, it was something I was thinking about. He goes, I just didn't know if I could. And I don't know if I inspired him or just gave him to show him that it actually can work. But I guess that's inspiration. But he's down, I want to say he's down 40 pounds. I could be wrong on that number. I haven't asked him. He might be down more. But he looks incredible. I was working with him last night on the deck because we built a beautiful deck off the back of his house. Last year, he couldn't have did that. You know what I mean? Last year, he would have took 5 steps into the deck. He would have been trying to catch his breath. And this year, he was out there, cutting boards and screwing down whatever needed to be screwed down and framing out the job. And, I didn't say anything to him at the time, but it was like I got like a swell of pride that this guy's back in the game from something he saw me do, and now he's doing it. My girlfriend's aunt did it. She only did it for like 4 or 5 months, but during the 4 or 5 months, she would say things like, "I'm no longer addicted to food. It has no control over me anymore." And at 71 years old, she's backing down into sizes she hasn't worn in decades. To me, I thought once you hit 40, the idea of getting back into shape was ludicrous. You hit 40, your metabolism changes, all the old garbage information. And she is at 71 years old, and she said to me that I'm her inspiration. How am I inspiring somebody from that generation? And she's moved on to a different diet, and God bless her, because she has one thing I will say about carnivore is that socializing is tough. Depending on how strict you take it. Like, I don't eat seed oils. I don't eat vegetables. I don't eat anything but red meat, salt, and water, and seltzer. And I'll have the occasional egg. I lean more towards what they call the lion diet now than anything else, which is just red meat, salt, and water. But I do the occasional egg. When you break it down to as specific as I have, going to a restaurant and saying, "Listen, don't cook with seed oils," or "We don't have butter." You know what I mean? Or they don't have an a la carte menu, so I'm paying for $40 worth of food. I'm getting a piece of meat. It gets difficult. And if your why is strong enough, if your reason, what I mean by that is, if your reason for doing this diet is strong enough, then none of that matters. I'll eat at home, or I'll eat at home and go out with my friends and just have a drink while they eat, because realistically, I'm not hungry. I ate my pound and a half of beef. I'm good. Excuse me. So that, if I had to say there's a struggle point with carnivore, it's when you go out with your friends to eat, or when you have to eat somewhere that's not at home. But the health benefits, the energy, the looking in the mirror and loving who I am. My girlfriend, who met me at 260 pounds and loved me at 260 pounds. Obviously, she spent hours massaging my scalp and rubbing these knots out of my legs and dealing with the boils that I had and all these different things, and me sleeping most of my, she would come over the house and I would sleep for 6 hours while she was there. Like, she dealt with all that. She obviously loved me. But now she's attracted to me. And I'm sure she was attracted to me before, but now there's signs of it. I'll walk, I have a whole routine that I do in the morning. I'll come out of the bathroom after I'm done doing my grooming, whatever, and she'll look at me. She's like, "Whew, you are so handsome." Now, you may or may not think so, and that's okay, but she does, and that's what matters. And it just, what it's done in my whole life. I touched on the energy a little bit. I was taught, my son's doing carnivore now. He leans more towards keto. He still enjoys his vegetables, but when he's at my house, he splits his time between my house and his mother's house. My house, there isn't a vegetable in my house. There's not a cracker. There's not a, you look at my fridge, you will find a box of eggs. I have um, Walmart. Do you have Walmarts where you are?
We don't, but I know what
You're
I know
familiar with Walmart. You can buy for now it was $32. Now for $39, you can get a like a sausage sleeve of 10 pounds of chopped meat. And like I said earlier, I'm very conscious of how much I spend on me, so I'll buy two of those. So it's 20 pounds of beef, and that's what I'll eat. So if you look at my fridge, you'll find one or two slabs of the chopped meat or ground beef, a box of eggs, and my girlfriend now is back doing. Anytime she puts on a few pounds, she'll jump on the carnivore to get back down because we're going to a wedding. She wants to fit in her dress. She'll jump back onto carnivore to take off 12 or 14 pounds. So she likes chicken. So you'll find two big packages of chicken, two things of chopped meat, and a thing of eggs, and 2 gallons of water. I'm wasting a lot of fridge space. Is basically what I'm telling you.
each day now. So it's because you're doing the night shift. So you kind of wake up late morning, early afternoon, and then you have your meal then, or do you take it to work with you?
I my I used to drive to work. Now I'm taking a train. So I leave my house at about 6 o'clock at night. I get to work at like 9, and I bring or my chopped meat that's already cooked, and I'll heat it up in the microwave there. And I just reduced how much I'm eating, but you figure I'll eat about a pound of chopped meat before I start working, and I'll work through the night, and I'll come home. I get home at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and if I'm sometimes I walk in the door and I'm empty, and I could tell that it's time to eat. But if I'm not hungry, I'll go about my routine, and then maybe I'll eat at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or I won't eat again until 9 o'clock. I've actually done a couple of different fasts, one as much as 6 days. And my technique on that is I'll feast, as much as I could put down in the sitting, and then I don't set a time frame on the fast. I have a hope, but it's not a set time frame. And my deal with myself is when I get hungry, I'll eat again. And the longest I've gone is 6 days. I drink water. I take in salt because I work a very hot, laborious job, so I want to keep my electrolytes up. But I don't take in any food until I'm hungry. And like I said, I've gone 24 hours. I've gone 32 hours, 36 hours, and the longest I've gone. Recently I went 46 hours, but the longest was 6 days. And the reason I ate on the 6th day, something that happened, and I didn't. I was busy all day. I was trying to go to sleep to get ready for work, and I got a million phone calls and family members, and I had to run favors for people, so I didn't get to sleep. And my mind kept wandering back to food. So by the time it was about time to leave for work, all I could think about was eating. And I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm necessarily hungry, but I don't want to be at work with no food and then get hungry. So at the 6 day mark, I called it quits. I had a couple of eggs and went off to work.
Mm.
So, but
And
that's, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so what's your sleep like day to day? Because it sounds like with your schedule, it sounds like there's not a lot of time for sleep.
I'll be honest with you. I don't need much sleep. I used to. I used to come home. I would drive home from work, and I'd be home by 7:30 because it was a little faster to drive home. And I would be asleep by 9 o'clock, and I would sleep straight through till 6:30 when I had to get in the shower and start preparing to get to work. Um, I am perfectly comfortable with 4 hours of sleep. You know, on the weekends, it's actually like they laugh about it at my house. If my girlfriend likes to be in bed asleep by 10 o'clock, no questions asked. She's heading at 9:15, 9:20. She's already talking about it. 9:30, she's heading for the bedroom. If you open the door at 10:01, she doesn't know you're there. If I go to sleep with her, I did it the other night. We went to bed. I went to bed at like 9:30. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, and not like, oh God, I got it. It was, you know, I got up, I got in the shower, I got dressed, I was doing stuff around that. By the time everybody got up, I had 3 or 4 hours of stuff done already. I went out, I exercised, I was running around doing things. It just, I'm not sleep depriving myself. I don't want everybody to think, oh, he's only getting 4 hours sleep. I was up until 9:30 that night. At 9:30, it was game over for me. And then the next day I slept a little longer, but it, it was it was a pleasure to be up. I woke up, it was still dark out.
Yeah.
But that was on my day off. I was home that night.
Mm.
But yeah, a long day's sleep for me now is like 6 hours. Um, and the energy, like the concern I always had about that little sleep would be that I don't have energy. Um, my energy is on demand. Um, like when we set up a job at work, that sometimes it takes a while. They have to set up a whole safety net before we can go onto the job site. So that could take 10 minutes, or sometimes it could take as much as an hour, depending on how much space we have to cover. So on the nights where it takes an hour, you there's nothing you can do until the safety is set up. So you're just sitting there. It's midnight. So now you're like, ugh. And by the time they call you to start working, you're not sleeping. Obviously, you're at work. You're not gonna go to sleep, but you're dragging your feet. But as soon as I get in the position where I have to start shoveling or start digging or whatever it is I have to do, the second my arms reach out to start the work, I can feel the energy come on. I can't, it's not something I can explain, but the energy comes on. And from that moment, I don't care how long you want to work. You want to go 3 hours, you want 5 hours, you want to work for 10 hours. I can go all night long working. And when the job is done, I get out of the area. If I'm like, it's a lot of heavy lifting, so your muscles will get sore like you worked out. But while I'm working, I feel the soreness in my muscles. I get off the job site, I walk 10 steps, and the soreness is gone. There's guys, they wake up, they tell me, oh yeah, last night was rough. When I woke up this morning, my back was stiff. My arm was killing me. My this hurt. I was like, well, I guess I can imagine what you're talking about, but I didn't feel any of it. And some of these guys I have 10, 20 years on. I'm just a different animal now.
So, Eben, if you were giving someone advice about getting started with carnivore, based on your experience, what advice or tips would you give them?
I don't know that I would recommend doing it the way I did. Um, my favorite way to describe it is I jumped off the carnivore cliff. I went from eating horribly to right into carnivore. And I started carnivore wrong, with the wrong type of steaks, the wrong type of meat. My suggestion is, uh, back into it slowly. Whether you try ketovore first and just baby step your way towards carnivore, or you back away from your. If you do your research, there's a lot of content creators out there that really explain carnivore in detail. Baby step your way into it. Cut out coffee. Let that sit for a little while. Work out the caffeine, then start to work out the sugar. Um, the benefit from that is the withdrawals will be lighter. It won't be such a struggle, and you'll have time to get used to it. Now, the good thing about the way I did it is it was a hammer blow, and then it was over. And it made me, I recognized the benefits right out of the gate because I fell into it. If you back into it slowly, the benefits may come slower. The weight loss might be different. All those different factors come into play, but you might find it more manageable. And you can slowly change your lifestyle where, at Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was eating like a slob. And at 3:15, I was eating carnivore. And now everybody in my life had to adjust to my new way of doing things. You know what I mean? So that would be my suggestion. Unless you're in dire circumstances like I was, baby step into it.
Yeah, awesome. So Eben, if people want to reach out to you, do you have any social media or any other way of getting in contact?
Yes, I have a YouTube channel that I've been more active on. Um, it's Lions Den, Lionsden 4170. Um, I've made some more recent lifestyle changes. I'm doing more exercising. I'm doing wind sprints. I'm going for walks. Doing calisthenics, and my YouTube channel has been kind of based on that experience with carnivore. And if you go to my older videos, you'll see the beginning story with how I felt about carnivore and what my experience has been. I went into much greater detail with you as far as my illnesses and stuff, but it's interesting. Is it clickbaity? Is it exciting? Is it sexy? No, but it's very real. I don't use any. I don't use any. It's all one take. What you're hearing me talk about, what you're hearing me say, what you're seeing me do is actually what's happening. There's no cuts. There's no anything like that. So it's very real. I mean, if that's something you're into, I I would love to have subscribers. I would love to have people commenting. It's because I don't chase that. It's taking its time, but I would love to see it. I'm going to continue doing it because at the end of the day, it's for me. It motivates me and it motivates me to stay healthy for my son. So I just keep doing it. And I'm on Facebook with my name, Eben Marshall. If you want to reach out to me, if you need if you have any questions or you want any help with carnivore, I'm more than willing to help.
No worries. I'll link to your YouTube and your Facebook in the show notes. Evan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and letting us know how things are going. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.